Very good. Welcome, everyone. Today is Tuesday, February 8th, 2022. This is our Indigent Defense Commission meeting. And we do have an anchor location where Executive Director Matt is located there in the offices, but everyone else, we are virtual participating today. We have a few commissioners, but I think I'll wait for introductions because we're not quite to quorum. And there is a 7-minute training that it's on the agenda later on. We can do that first while we have some more commissioners join in. So this is the open meetings training video.
Great, I'll get it started. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, can everybody see that?
Yes.
All right, I'll get it started.
I'm watching, but I'm turning off my video so you won't see me eat lunch.
That's fair.
What's the Open and Public Meetings Act? It's the state law that ensures government actions and deliberations are openly conducted. Before we continue, keep in mind that this video is an overview, and exceptions may exist based on your entity type. So what's considered an open and public meeting? It's when a governing body majority meets to discuss or act upon government business. It includes the meetings sometimes referred to as workshops or executive sessions. Regular meetings, public hearings, electronic meetings, and emergency meetings are all open and public meetings. Open and public meetings don't include chance or social meetings. A public hearing is a type of open and public meeting where citizens have a reasonable opportunity to speak. Public hearings happen when a government adopts a budget or imposes or increases taxes or fees. An electronic meeting is a type of open and public meeting that's convened electronically, such as via phone or the internet. Remember, the governing body must adopt a resolution, rule, or ordinance allowing and governing electronic meetings. An open and public meeting may be closed to discuss any of the following: a person's character, competence, or health, security personnel, devices, or systems deployment, collective bargaining, litigation, purchase, sale, or lease of property if an open discussion would prevent the entity from completing the transaction on the best terms, investigations of criminal misconduct, and private or protected information per the Utah Procurement Code, including trade secrets. 2/3 of the governing body need to vote yes to close a meeting. Quick math lesson. 2 divided by 3 equals 66.7%. Let's say your governing body has 5 members. If 3 out of the 5 members vote yes, that equals 60%, which is not equal to or greater than 66.7%, which means you're 1 member short and instead need 4 out of 5 members to vote yes. During a closed meeting, a governing body can't interview someone applying to fill an elected position, discuss filling a midterm vacancy or temporary absence, discuss the character, competence, or health of a person whose name was submitted for consideration to fill a midterm vacancy or temporary absence, or approve any ordinance, resolution, rule, regulation, contract, or appointment. If a closed meeting is discussing a person's character, competence, or health, or security personnel, devices, or systems deployment, no recording or minutes are required. However, the presiding member needs to sign a sworn written statement stating such. If the closed meeting is held for any other reason, a recording must be made. Emergency meetings may be held to discuss an urgent matter due to unforeseen circumstances. In order to hold the meeting, the best notice that's feasible is provided of the time, location, and topics to be considered. An attempt is made to contact all governing body members, and the governing body majority approves the meeting. Entities that hold regular meetings need to provide notice at least annually of the year's meeting schedule. As always, the notice must include date, time, and place. For entities that don't hold regularly scheduled regular meetings, 24 hours notice must be provided. All meetings, whether regularly scheduled in advance over the course of the year or scheduled as needed, must provide no less than 24 hours notice of meeting agendas. If a public hearing is held, public notice requirements change. Make sure to distinguish between regular meeting notice requirements and public hearing notice requirements. For regular meetings, an entity is only required to notify a newspaper and doesn't need to pay to publish a notice. For public hearings, notice must be published in at least one issue of a newspaper. If a newspaper of general circulation isn't available, written notice is posted in 3 public places within the entity's boundaries. Regular meetings require 24 hours notice. Public hearings require 7 days notice. For both regular meetings and public hearings, written notice must be posted at the principal office of the governing body, or if no such office exists, at the building where the meeting will be held. Governing bodies must also provide notice of open and public meetings on the public notice website at publicnotice.utah.gov. By posting on the website and providing the email of the local newspaper, governing bodies can also meet the requirement to notify a newspaper. However, other requirements such as publishing in a newspaper still apply. Typically, posting on the public notice website is done by the records officer, recorder, or clerk. However, it's the governing body's responsibility to ensure notice is provided. State Archives has prepared a training manual and quick guide for owners and posters, as well as training videos that can be accessed at their website at archives.utah.gov. If your entity is increasing a fee or undergoing truth and taxation for a property tax increase, be aware that there are additional notice and posting requirements. Public meeting agendas need to include reasonably specified topics to be considered, with each topic listed under a separate agenda item on the meeting agenda. The governing body may not consider a topic in an open meeting that wasn't on the agenda. If a new topic not on the agenda is raised by the public during an open meeting, the governing body may discuss the topic. However, final action may not be taken on the new topic during that meeting. Meeting minutes and an audio recording are required for all open meetings, with limited exceptions. When an open or closed meeting is required to be recorded, it must be unedited and contain all the portions of the meeting. Recordings of open meetings must be made available within 3 days. Every entity needs to establish procedures for the governing body's approval of minutes. Pending minutes are written minutes prepared in draft form and are subject to change before being approved by the governing body. Pending minutes must contain a clear indication, such as a draft or pending watermark, that the governing body hasn't yet approved the minutes and that they're subject to change. Pending minutes must be made available within 30 days. Approved minutes are written minutes of a meeting that have been approved by the governing body. Approved minutes are the official record of the meeting and must be made available within 3 business days. Whoever is responsible for taking the minutes during meetings, typically the records officer, recorder, or clerk, needs to be familiar with what OPMA requires be contained in the minutes. When a governing body closes a meeting, the following must be publicly announced and entered into the minutes of the open meeting at which the closed meeting was approved. The reason or reasons for holding the closed meeting, the location where the closed meeting will be held, and the vote of each member of the governing body, either for or against the motion to close the meeting. The recording and any minutes must include the date, time, and location of the meeting, the names of the governing body members present and absent, and the names of all others present except where disclosure would infringe on the confidentiality necessary to fulfill the original purpose of closing the meeting. For more information, access our local government resource center at resources.auditor.utah.gov.
All right. That was great. As you can see, there's a lot to it. And our staff does a really good job helping this body. And then I would say Commissioner Luce is also quite expert.
You
So
should know.
yes, we very much appreciate that. Okay, we may have our quorum. Is that
Yeah, we should have a quorum. Mary just joined, so that would be the 8th.
tremendous? Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm just going to say everyone's names to be kind of quick. The commissioners who are here are Commissioner Ross, Commissioner Luce, Commissioner Corporon, Commissioner Drexel, Commissioner Vickery, Commissioner Bugden, Commissioner Zimmerman, Commissioner Kamalu. And that saves us a tiny bit of time. And then we have our IDC staff. We're super grateful for you. So let's see, let's get to number I'll take a motion. If you've had a chance to read minutes, we'll take care of that right now too with our quorum. I have read them and think they're great.
This is Wally. I'd make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second,
Great. So a motion by Wally, second by Mary Corcoran. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? All right, that's unanimous. Thank you. Second item is the fiscal year 22 non-lapsing grant request discussion and votes. So let's have our staff go ahead and present the information for us.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. I will start off just by talking about what non-lapsing is and the notice of funding opportunity that we released. So the IDC has non-lapsing authority, meaning any of our general fund state dollars that are unspent at the end of the fiscal year roll into our non-lapsing balance. That non-lapsing balance typically goes on hold for the first 6 months of the fiscal year until it's released by the governor. So this year, when that was released in December, we put out a notice of funding opportunity for indigent defense systems that offered one-time funding for defense resources, training-related expenses, technology and equipment upgrades, temporary positions such as law clerks, interns, admins, etc. And the restrictions on this is that funding will need to be used by June 30th, 2022, which is the last day of the fiscal year, and that funding cannot supplant local funding. In response to that, we received requests from 10 counties for just under $700,000 in funding. As a staff, we talked about the available funds we have in our budget and arrived at a target of $500,000 or less for funding. So we'd like you to keep that target in mind as we go through this presentation. And then first, before we individually describe what those requests were and talk through those, we wanted to get the Commission's perspective on how we should handle any technology and equipment requests. We've categorized those requests into two groups. The first being requests for systems that utilize contractors not located in a centralized defender office. So this is where contract attorneys are typically operating out of their own law office or private workspace. And that would include requests that we received from Juab, Millard, Beaver, Kane, and Tooele. The second category would be requests for organized defender offices. And the requests that we received in that category would be from Utah County Public Defender Association and then the new Weber County Public Defender Office. We also received notification that Weber County has signed an agreement with Morgan County now to handle their indigent defense services, which effectively makes that a regional project, which is great news. A subset to that group would also be any discussion on whether we should focus on office startup costs or any costs for expanding services versus anything that would be more of a maintenance or upgrade item that the county could or should be maybe budgeting for. So with that, I just want to open it up to discussion on those points.
Very good. Any questions or comments from commissioners? Seems pretty straightforward to me.
Okay, well, we'll move on. So what I would like to do is there's 7 slides that list out the requests that were made. Tom, Commissioner Ross, I apologize. Do you have a question?
No, you're fine. I just thought maybe I was thinking, well, when you're asking for some feedback, and if I looked at the numbers correctly, we've got about $200,000 roughly that of requests that exceed the $500,000 mark, if I read that right. So my question out of the gate would be, if we eliminated one of those categories, whether it's maintenance, upgrades versus startup, what that would do to that number, you know, if that brings it down to in line, or because that may be just from a practical standpoint and from a philosophical, what do we want to do? That might be easy to help, or at least help me to decide if we should limit it. Otherwise, we just cut percentages out of each group, and I get that as well.
Yeah, that's a great question. I see 3 hands. Let's have Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, and I just wanted to give a little bit of staff input as far as these questions and some of the thoughts that we had. As far as the contractors go, we felt it was maybe less in line with IDC's mission if we were providing technology equipment for contractors who maybe just have a small contract, and that contract only represents maybe, you know, 1/3 of their actual time spent doing work. And so we thought maybe those resources would be better aligned with our mission if those were to go to more full-time public defender type offices. So just wanted to share the staff's input on that first bullet point there.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, helpful. Michael Drexel?
Oh, thanks. I was going to ask the slide up from this that talks about the target funding 500,000 or less. Is there any advantage to being significantly less than the 500,000, or are we trying to get as close to allocating this $500,000 as possible? What feedback can you give us on that?
I feel that we have enough funding that it would be comfortable to award up to that amount. So there would be no benefit to awarding less than that.
There aren't any other projects that could be addressed if we appropriate less. I guess I'm just trying to figure out, is there a cost benefit exchange that we say, well, we'll award up to $500,000 of these requests, but at the expense of this other thing that we could do with the money as well? That's all I'm trying to clarify.
I think that's a good point, and we have left still a substantial amount of money in our non-lapsing funds so we can cover problems that might come up. But really part of the discussion today is exactly that, Michael. Does the commission want to award these funds? Are there things you really think are worthy, or not? Do you want less than 500? I think that's a reasonable question, certainly.
And I think that articulates it nicely. It's not necessarily that I have any concern about spending, allocating up to $500,000, especially if you guys think that's the comfortable place to be looking at the money. But just because we have the money and a request has been made may not mean that we ought to fund that request, right? And that we could use that money for other, maybe more worthy purposes if we decide not to spend on certain categories,
right,
or certain requests. Okay.
Yeah, I see that you hit that nail on the head. Good.
Okay,
Michael
thank you.
Zimmerman.
Yeah, so this is non-lapsing money.
Mhm.
Correct.
On time, right?
I would just raise a question: startup costs versus renovation costs. If startup costs were for, say, a joint office or something like that, something incident to one of our larger goals, it would seem to me startup costs make sense. If it's otherwise, we had that issue with Utah County, was it last year or the year before, furnishing new space, et cetera, where I think we chose not to do that. And I would think we'd want to, personally, I would think that was a good choice. That we aren't here to actually pick up startup costs that counties or local governments want to incur to perform their duty. We're here more to put our money kind of at the heart of the project.
Thank you. Who was going to say something? No? Yeah, that's some great discussion. Wally, were you going to say something?
No.
No? Okay.
So with that, I think if I proceed and present each of these individual slides, I think the context of that question might come more into focus. So if we could go through these next 7 slides, I'll present the items that have been requested, and then we can come back and go through and have commission discussion and potential motions on a slide-by-slide basis, if that will work.
That sounds good.
So this first slide request came in for Juab, Millard, and Sanpete County. This is a regional project. All 3 counties contract with Utah County Public Defender Association. They are overseen by 1 managing defender and an admin assistant. With Juab and Sanpete County, their requests were initially higher, but in review of their defense resource spending over the past year, we found that the counties had prepaid a reserve of defense resources. And after speaking with staff at the system, they found that they felt they could cover part of that request from their existing reserves. So what you see is a revised request from those 2 systems, each including $5,000 in additional defense resources. And then Juab County has also requested funding for 1 new computer for their district conflict and justice court attorney. Also 1 note on defense resources request. If these were added to their grant, they would still have to meet their county budgeted spending before they could receive reimbursement for those defense resources. So Juab County has a $25,000 budget for resources, and Sanpete has a $26,000 budget for those. So they still would have to meet that bar before requesting reimbursement. Millard
Greg,
County.
do we know where, Greg, can I ask, do we know where they stand on those budgets so far? I mean, have they burned through most of that, or is most of that still sitting in reserve currently?
Yeah, it's a little bit difficult because the Public Defender Association typically bills them a specific amount each quarter, and then it's held in reserves at the association. So Juab County this year has been billed and has paid half of theirs, and Sanpete has been billed $6,500 out of the $26,000 and has paid that so far, with 6 months of the year essentially passed. So with Millard County, they also have a county budget, $13,300 for defense resources. They have an extraordinary child welfare case that they anticipate will exhaust their defense resources. So their request includes some additional items. They have asked for $10,000 for a short-term contract with a Spanish-speaking attorney. They previously had a bilingual attorney that's no longer able to provide services. And so they're feeling the need for that additional bilingual attorney. They're also asking for funding for an attorney to work hourly to address pandemic backlogs. They're asking for $10,000 additional for defense resources, 1 new computer for their primary district and justice court attorney, and $5,000 hourly for law clerk and interns. Again, all of which would need to be utilized by June 30th. On the next slide, the first 2, Beaver County and Kane County, are our newest grantees. They are working in a regional project with Iron County, and their requests are identical. They've each requested computer equipment for their contractors to allow them to work remotely and attend court online. They also have requested a 1-year DocuSign license for each county. Historically, the commission did approve some requests for DocuSign in the last non-lapsing round, and that is done as a 1-year license. So just a little context there. Box Elder County's request is $16,800 to be used for an hourly investigator contract. They estimate they would use that 20 hours per month for 6 months at $140 an hour. There's a little bit of nuance to this request. Box Elder County budgets $4,500 for defense resources a year, and that has been underutilized over the last year. When we asked for clarification on this item, they said that the reason for this investigator contract is it would make it easier for attorneys to access this resource, because the current procedure that they have to go through it gets in the way of them utilizing defense resources. Essentially, an attorney has to make a motion to use the defense resource. The prosecutor can then object to that, and the court has to approve it. If they do, then the attorney has to pay out of pocket and seek reimbursement from the county. So it looks like that policy is currently affecting the usage in that county. The next request is from Tooele County. They have requested just under $20,000 for equipment and supplies. Again, this is a county with contractors operating out of law offices. That request would include 6 printer scanner fax combinations, 5 desk chairs, 4 client chairs, a desk, 6 iPads with stands, 7 monitors, some Ethernet switch and cables, MacBook laptop, 3 MacBook adapters, and 2 Surface laptops. And the second item here is $36,000 for administrative support. The current grant does pay for some support for the managing defender in this system, and this additional request would support the other attorneys with backlog, drafting motions, plea agreements, client communication, and scheduling. The next request is from Uinta County. They have requested $20,000 to put toward an in-person CLE to be held in Vernal, which includes $3,500 for 7 presenters, including hourly fees and travel, $5,800 for conference catering, which would need to be within per diem rates, $500 for venue room rental, $7,200 for lodging, which would be for 80 attorneys at $90 per room. $750 for tablecloths and decor, $2,000 for AV recording and publishing, and then $250 for print materials. They're also asking for IDC to co-sponsor the event with IDC support staff. On this item, if it were to be approved, staff would recommend requiring that it includes skills-based training and breakouts and workshops. And then the next item is $4,430 for a special project to survey 8th District Court clients. It would pay a data clerk an hourly wage to do phone surveys with clients that the system worked with in 2021. It would also require prepaid minutes on a phone to do those calls. They would be evaluating attorney performance and identifying areas of improvement in the system. And then they noted that they would also share any data gleaned from that with the IDC. The next request is Utah County. This one is 2 slides, so I'll go through it quickly here. Just under $80,000 for computers, phones, docking stations. So they would like to replace 10 computers with laptops, a second monitor, and a docking station, as well as a printer. They've requested funding for 7 phones, 4 sets of office furniture, and then an upgrade to network switches, firewall, and cabling. They noted that that item is based on a recommendation from their IT provider. They have hired 4 new attorneys and 3 social workers over the last year, and that's being recommended to handle the increased bandwidth on their network. They've also asked for funding to send 10 attorneys to the 2022 Forensic Science and Law Seminar. This would include registration fees, flights, hotel rooms, and attorney per diem. This conference is in Las Vegas, and I checked the agenda. It looks like it's a 3-day agenda, but the first day actually starts at 3:30 in the afternoon. So if this were to be approved, I believe that we should adjust down the hotel rooms to 3 nights instead of 4, and potentially adjust the per diem accordingly to state travel policy. The next item is $142,000 for temporary, for 4 temporary backlog attorneys. This is an item that we originally funded 6 months of on non-lapsing last year. The county then continued that funding itself for 6 months, and they are asking for an additional 6 months of grant funding to support that. The reason for that, the need, is that they have pulled 4 attorneys away to handle a capital case, and they have identified a need to continue support on those caseloads. One last item on this page, $5,000 for clothing and closet organization. They currently have a wardrobe that provides court-appropriate clothing for clients to attend trials and hearings. They're wanting to get that organized, and then also they have quite a bit of clothing for male clients, but they would like to expand what they have available for female clients. They are also requesting just under $2,000 for law books that are listed there, as well as $10,000 for business process training to create office policy and procedure. They noted that with the increase in staff and the expansion of their office, people doing things their own individual way is reducing their efficiency. So they want to hire a consultant to come in and assist them to develop internal policies and procedures to improve the efficiency of their office. And then the last item on here is $123,000 to address calendar year 2021 budget shortfalls in their defense resource categories. Those categories are listed, and in the request, they noted that they would like to replenish their budget for 2022 rather than draw out of reserves to cover these shortfalls. So I just wanted to note that as it may be something to consider, that they do have reserves that could potentially cover that. The next item is Beaver County. This is the last request. The first one for $45,000 in additional funding for existing specialty contract. The grant with Beaver County currently funds 2 of these contracts, up to $70,000 at an hourly rate of $125 per hour. These are experienced attorneys that typically work as first chair on difficult cases, such as homicide and first degree felony sex cases. And they had noted that one of those contractors has already used over $60,000 of that contract. So they're hoping to extend and receive an additional $45,000 to allow that attorney to continue working on these cases through the end of the fiscal year. They also noted that they lost 5 attorneys in October, and that was reported to be partially due to their workload. The next group of items is the startup costs for their public defender office. So the county has funding and is building out office space, but they only have enough funding essentially to furnish, I believe, 3 offices currently. And they've received a lot of interest from their contract attorneys who would like to work in the centralized office. So they're hoping to receive additional funding in order to be able to provide that space. So the first item is 11 desks with Bookcase and Credenza. They clarified that that is the package that they typically provide for prosecutors. So that is where that cost basis came from. They're also requesting 5 cubicles, 16 desktop computers, 11 laptops, a copy machine, 2 printers, funding for website design, which would include a client portal for clients to view discovery, $2,500 for video conference equipment, including a meeting owl, a large monitor, and a sound bar, and a Zoom license. And then the last item on the list is $2,000 to pay an hourly rate for one of their attorneys to provide training on the Defender Data case management system. Just wanted to note in staff discussion on the last 2 items, it was noted that Zoom licenses have been declined in the past by the commission. The reasoning for that is that court is held by WebEx, and Zoom offers a free license with unlimited one-on-one meetings and free group meetings up to 40 minutes. So that item we would potentially recommend declining. And then the last item we would also recommend that IDC considers declining. We, with our new training coordinator, Jenny Bird, are able to provide this training for free. Jenny is experienced in a public defender office and is very skilled with Defender Data as well. So with that, that is the list of requests that we've received. I'll back up to the first page of those and open that up to discussion.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Greg, before you open it up to discussion, do you want to share with us the staff view about how to trim $200,000? You know, or do you want us to just go through item by item?
I think that might hinge kind of on this discussion with the technology and equipment, and whether, and you know, how we feel about funding equipment for contractors.
And
Matt, do you want to expound on that at all, or?
yeah, thanks. Go ahead, Matt, with your comment in the chat too.
Yeah, well, I was just saying that I think as we go through, I'm happy to chime in and share some of our discussions and recommendations as well as we go through the slides.
Yeah, I had a similar question to Wally's, and I love the focus of this group on the mission and what brings us forward collectively as a state. I'll put out there too, this is just to give some context from the counties, like all counties, that perspective. All counties received some relief funds, and knowing that there were these backlogs that were looming and on, you know, I guess I speak as a commissioner, helpful, and maybe I'll have done some, just can't do what is needed, but to anticipate, to take some of that funding that was given for response and consequences of the pandemic, and you know, as counties be able to pay for some of this has been very important, I will say, very important for our county. Throwing that out.
I'm not sure what I think about buying computers for conflict counsel, for example, that are going to occasionally have cases, but aren't going to be full-time public defenders.
Right.
So the idea is that they would end up then with a computer that the IDC's bought for them, but sort of a windfall for them.
Right.
Seems
Yeah.
like startup. It seems like a greater priority would be startup costs for, say, Weaver, for example, than a conflict attorney that again, occasionally we'll have a conflict case, but we'll also be using that same computer arguably for his own practice.
Thank you. Other comments from commissioners just in general? About it? Okay.
I just, and picking up on the Commissioner Kamalu, given the pandemic money that's gone to local government, how does something like the Utah County request sit with you, or the Weber County one? I mean,
Well, that's the thing is, I know other counties somewhat, but when they're executives, it is literally an executive responsibility to utilize those funds. And whether or not the executives have taken some of that money and put it in, to help. We were fortunate in our county to have had a lot of interaction and a lot of engagement where the justice system was informing us and warning us. We had a lot of warning that what was going to happen as those trials were not holding in the backlog that was growing. So we not only had good input from our justice system people internally, but also we listened to them and we set that money aside. So I don't know, whether those two things have happened in all of the other counties. I'm just giving context that that was an appropriate use. And so there's that. But yeah, I completely agree as a commissioner with IDC commissioner with Wally that I definitely think it's an easy decision for me to not be providing new technical equipment when there's part-time helping the public defense. I just don't know that gets us. Does that get us down? How far does that get us down to the target? And Commissioner Mill has a lot of experience with counties, and I don't know if you want to add to what I said, Sean, as kind of an overall understanding of counties with the relief funds that everyone received. Certainly, the more populated counties received more funding. So.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. That's true, but they have more population. So I would argue to some degree, everybody proportionately to some degree got a lot of money in air quotes. And every county will have to prioritize where to put it. For me, as I'm hearing this though, I go back a couple or few years and wonder, okay, so basic premise here for me as a commissioner, IDC commissioner, are we trying to set up counties to over time self-fund? And my recollection is yes, so that they take on more and more of this, much to the disappointment of some early critics from counties, but that's the natural reality of it. If so, I'm a little bit torn on this because I look at the computer stuff a little bit different than the training requests. And I know that we're talking about the technology part right now, but if free training is already available, that one for me becomes just an easy one to say, I don't know that I want to subsidize these training costs if there's something else that's already available. The computer stuff, I look at a little bit different. Is it a hard asset? Does it perpetuate for at least a few years? Does it give them the opportunity, meaning the counties, to think about what they're willing to fund if we do it as kind of a one-time setup, and then, whatever you guys pay for, whatever you guys acquire today, are you willing to take on in future years that hardware cost? not wanting to say everybody's got to be the same, but are you willing to take that on in the future? If so, would I don't know. I think I'm rambling here because I don't know how how to put together my thoughts. Going back to your original question, Lorene, everybody got money. We have to decide how to spend it. If this is the way to do it, or if it's roads and bridges, if it's to help subsidize school districts for overruns that they had to adapt, I guess I really don't have too much sympathy here. Everybody's got to choose where they think the priority of those ARPA funds need to go. I think I agree with you in as much as everybody got a lot, and you've got some basic needs you need to pay for. Some seem better at that than others, and others seem to want to play with their money.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see, anyone else?
This is Tom, and maybe I'll make a comment before I leave here in a minute. Yeah, I've been, as I was looking through this yesterday morning a little bit, I find myself a little bit, I'm conflicted because I don't really quite understand, if this is a one-time shot of money that's not likely to be repeated every year, then I would almost say cut everything back by 25% and then eliminate the ones that we don't want to fund and see what the number is and give everybody a shot at that. If we're building a pathway that every year we're going to have this funding, then I think we have to be much more methodical about what we're willing to fund and what we're not willing to fund. And so that's kind of where I'm at with this.
Thank you.
I have a question about the is it $80,000 budget for CLE that was submitted by, which county was it? It's out in the basin, I think.
Uinta?
I
Yeah.
think there were two submissions. One was the in-person CLE in the basin, and the
Vernal.
other was the trip to Las Vegas for the forensic training.
Yeah, that was
Different.
24, and then the other was 80,000 for 80.
The Vernal one was 20.
Yeah, one was 80, one was 20 something. Why is the county providing, I just asked, training for 80 lawyers, room and board and everything else in the basin? Is that for the whole basin? Who's the sponsor there?
Michael, I don't think it's for the whole basin because I didn't attend one of the CLEs that was in Vernal a year or two ago before pandemic. A lot of people attended, but there aren't 80 criminal defense attorneys in Uinta County. Maybe
There
they're
aren't 80
thinking,
lawyers in
Yeah,
general.
that's right.
I mean, there's like 40 lawyers in all of the 8th judicial district. So
in the particular line item of $7,200 for lodging. I don't know why we would support that.
Well, 5,800 for catering and snacks.
This is Pam. Is this, what I remember is that Lance in years past has put on a training in the Vernal area where he invited all defense attorneys from across the state to come. And what he was kind of doing was building interest in the Vernal area, and it's a lovely area. Don't people really want to move here and be defense attorneys here as well? So it was kind of more of, he was creating momentum about a day-long training that, and he did put on a great training, but I don't know that this is, I mean, this seems to me to be the stuff that the IDC is doing already through your luncheon webinars and things like that versus, I mean, like I said, they did a great in-person training when they had a lot of different speakers come and stuff like that. But I think he was creating this like event where you went to Vernal and people were exposed to Vernal and traveled to Vernal for an all day long training, and defense attorneys from all across the state came. So it wasn't specific to defense attorneys in Vernal. It was like a statewide CLE course. I think that's what this is asking for, right?
That is, yeah. They did a training in 2019 that was attended by 76 attorneys. So I think that's the basis for their numbers.
And
Did
the
we
prob-
fund some of that?
I didn't hear that question. I apologize.
I'm sorry, I should have raised my hand. Did we fund some of that, Greg?
I believe we did. Don't have the exact dollar amount, but we funded a portion of that. Jenny, do you know the exact amount that was provided by IDC?
I don't, and honestly, I think most of it came out of miscellaneous budgets and defense resources budgets that Uinta County had, because we had the civil attorney set up a budget upon creation of the regional office. And so there was a lot of excess county side funding that we used for the training. And then the following year, the grant got reduced for Uinta County. So all of that extra money that Uinta County started with ended up being put back into the budgets that were reduced. So I think it was mostly county side, but it was like county side that they agreed to spend kind of on their threshold side of defense resources.
And can I just chime in to say, I think, like I said, Lance did a spectacular job, and as did you, Jenny, with this. I thought it was a really great training, but I think my concern is that it's a training that included both private and public defense bar. And so I think to say that you're going to use IDC dollars and not make it really clear that this is for people who have public defense contracts who versus like being open to everyone. And I don't know if there's like some way to like, anyway, I mean, the presentations was for both. And I think that this doesn't make it clear whether or not there's money being used for, maybe this is just for the speakers. I think maybe the cost for the speakers, but it is both. I guess it doesn't matter if it's public defense or private defense, if this is money for the speakers versus for the attendees to come.
So just to add to the discussion with, I think Matt has a good point that we could comment on certain things as we go that we feel maybe aren't appropriate to fund. I was just adding some numbers together though on so non-centralized office equipment. So office equipment for those counties that are not in a public defender office. The requests are $24,457. Requests for training, including the one in Vernal, total $40,810. And then a reminder, there's categories like Utah County's request for the budget shortfalls. That category alone was $123,000. So I think that as we go through these, if we keep those types of things in mind, we could definitely get down below the target amount.
Okay, that's helpful. Okay, shall we go then through one at a time? So this is that first group. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so this is the regional project of Juab, Millard, and San Pete. We have the equipment costs here that are requested that are a potential item to cut out. Any discussion or motions on that?
Well, I've already articulated my position that I don't think that the part-time attorneys, which are categorized at least right here as conflict attorneys, that we should be buying equipment for them. I think that there are better ways to spend the money.
Okay, so it sounds like that's a motion. Should we do it that way with motions and seconds?
I'll second it.
Yeah. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Is there any commissioner opposed to that motion? Okay,
So just to be clear, was the motion to approve without the computers for part-time or just to remove that?
I think he said to remove that. Is that true, Wally?
Yeah, I understood it was right.
But not approve anything else at this time?
No.
Yeah, I was just moving to strike the conflict attorney computers.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah.
Can I ask on the defense resources? I think it's super important for systems and defenders to have access to defense resource money. That makes a lot of sense to me. And there ought to be as little friction to getting their hands on that money or utilizing that money as possible. But I wonder too, whether based on Greg, your description, that these entities have to spend down their own dedicated revenues first, and that there's at least some sense that at least one of the entities, I can't remember which one you said, hasn't spent hardly any of theirs, that it would be weird to allocate more money into that at this point. It seems like, couldn't we hold on to that and make decisions about allocating if there's a need within a given jurisdiction?
That's a good point. I think that with these counties, these requests are likely that they will need those resources. The one that had hardly spent, I believe, is the Box Elder request that we talked about for the additional investigator contract.
Well, it seems to me then, I mean, I don't know if it extends across all of the requests for defense resources, but I think as a general proposition, unless there's argument as to why we shouldn't, I would make a motion that the defense resource requests, especially if there's an established need, be flowed through as some of these funding requests that we grant.
Okay. It's a motion by Commissioner Drexel. Is there anyone who'd like to second that?
I'll second it.
Okay, Commissioner Zimmerman will second that. Any additional discussion on that? Okay, everyone who'd like to approve that motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
And are there any opposed? Okay, unanimous on that as well.
So I would also make a motion with respect to CLE and Uinta County's request for $20,000 to sponsor a CLE that would include an invitation to private attorneys, non-public defender attorneys. Even though I know that the seminar was very successful on a prior occasion and the people enjoyed it, I don't think it's a proper recipient of indigent defense funds. And similarly, I'm not supportive of, I can't remember, it was Utah County wanted to send people.
Utah County.
Send people to Las Vegas. And maybe this is a legit learning experience, but it's, sorry, I'm very skeptical and I don't support. So my motion is for the IDC to not fund Uinta County's request and to not fund Utah County's request for sending however many lawyers it was, 10 lawyers to Las Vegas.
Commissioner Bugman, if I could chime in just a little bit to relay some of the staff discussion regarding that as well. We largely agreed that sending 10 attorneys to Las Vegas, well, we might enjoy it. It wasn't the best use of resources. An alternative position might be just to approve one or two to go, who could then come and report back and share what they learned about DNA forensics to the rest of the office. But that was definitely something that caught our attention as well.
I'm okay with that modification. I'm happy to back down and say that, at least as a regard to the Las Vegas request, that two attorneys, that we could fund two attorneys going, but not more than that. But I'm still sticking with not offering IDC funding for Uinta County.
And I think I would support Wally's initial motion to not support the CLE, generally speaking, partially because I think the IDC has been providing additional CLEs beyond anything that the state of Utah and Indigent defense attorneys have known. Couldn't we structure something internally that speaks to some of these issues and do some online training on similar topics? It just seems to me like we could cast a lot broader net and cover a lot more of the Utah attorneys' needs doing it ourselves than sending 10 attorneys or 2 attorneys to Vegas.
May I make a comment? Oh, sorry, Mary, go ahead.
The problem with that is that for sort of pedestrian CLE updates of case law and so forth, that's very easy for us to supply. Once you get into the area of cutting edge DNA science and technology, there are really only a few people in the country who can teach that, and they often charge for the privilege of doing so. And there is, in fact, a benefit to be gained from attending some of these national conferences in terms of the CLE that's available. I think DNA science in particular is extraordinarily important to anybody who's handling certain categories of felony cases. And if we say we're going to undertake to do that education ourselves, we're going to need a multi-tens of thousands of dollars budget to bring those people to the table to talk to us. So I think that's an area where education is appropriate.
This is helpful. We're having discussion just with the first motion, but yeah,
Well,
I don't mind it.
just to offer a slightly contrary opinion to Mary, although I completely agree that it's a very technical area and it's not something where Katrina or Genevieve could put together a local presenter on DNA. I mean, how many cases does the average public defender have that require DNA analysis? That's pretty rare. I mean, there's a specialized need in certain cases, but it's not across the board that all the counties or that many public defender agencies need that training. So,
Well, and that's why I'm supportive of the concept of cutting that back to 2 attorneys. But I mean, there's news reports that Utah County has a couple of very high profile cases in which DNA factors heavily into the defense of those cases, being defended by the defender's office. So it seems legit for at least a couple of people.
Can we see the slide for the Utah County request?
And while you're pulling that up, Ben, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just want to say just real quick, sorry to jump in, about that Vegas forensics training. My old work, we had sent 2 lawyers there. This is probably, I'm talking when I left in 2018. And they said it was, I mean, I kind of agree. I don't think you need to send 10 people there, and whether the numbers that is above my pay grade to decide, but it's a wonderful training for trial lawyers in terms of very informative. And they came back and were able to really help the rest of the office when those issues came up. And so whether it needs to be 10 or 0, that I don't know, but I do think it is a great training that it's an annual one every year that I assume it's very similar to past years. And I've seen the list of speakers, and they are, I think as Mary said, like the national experts on this for defense. And so it would be very valuable. Whether it can be 10 or not or 0, that I have no idea, but it's a great training.
Hey,
Thanks, Ben.
Commissioner Kamalu, could I raise a question because of that? We did talk about this. This is a request just from Utah County, right?
Right.
And if you all are considering funding this, wouldn't you want to consider funding it for more counties that we're working with than just one? The fact that this came up as their request seems to me to be just pretty narrow in terms of who we would provide the benefit to.
Thank you for that. A couple more hands. I think Sean, you had your hand.
Yeah, thank you, Chairwoman. I absolutely concur with what Adam was saying. And for me to feel comfortable going along with whatever kind of trim down from 10, I would like to see it be conditional upon those individuals that go to the training, providing within 6 or 12 months of training to others then. Because if we're going to invest in it from a statewide system, knowing at least one cold case that got solved in Tooele County from DNA evidence that took years to come to bear, there are these smaller, satellites that wouldn't be able to afford being able to send folks there, but it obviously made a big difference in a murder case So I'd like to see that if a statewide system is going to give somebody the benefit that they come back and have to provide that as training to a broader audience, so that the statewide, system that we're trying to contemplate here can progressively get better.
Thank you. Seems like there was one other hand, but maybe they put it down. Also, welcome Commissioner Morrow. You jumped on some point. Sorry, we didn't see you. I didn't see you fast enough.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry I was late. But I'm here now.
Yeah, that's great. Glad to have you. Was it you, Michael Zimmerman? Did you have another comment?
Yeah, I was going to ask Wally if he'd modify his motion to incorporate the suggestion that was just made about sending a couple of people on condition they come back and basically mastermind a program available, hopefully online, to defenders' offices that we're supporting.
Sure. So to just summarize, then my motion is to not support the Uinta County request, to support sending 2 people to Vegas, with the understanding that the 2 people that go to Vegas will volunteer to make a presentation through the IDC on a WebEx or webinar presentation within 12 months of them attending.
Commissioner Bugden, may I also suggest including a decision on Weaver County's request for training funds also, if we are addressing other training?
Could you show that to us again?
Yes. That is for $2,000 for internal defender data training. Again, our staff is able to provide that at no cost.
Because IDC already provides training for defender data, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess I would ask that we not grant the $2,000 request for Weaver's internal defender data, that would also be part of my motion.
All right. Thanks, Commissioner Bugden. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, Commissioner Zimmerman. Any additional discussion? There's lots of good discussion around that. All right, I'll go ahead and vote. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there anyone opposed? Please say nay.
Madam Chair, to the extent that it involves Weaver County, since you all have made me a commissioner of Weaver County, I would abstain from a vote on Weaver County's request. But to the other extent, I would vote aye.
Okay, so this is where we need to make sure that if Rich is abstaining, do we still have the 8 with Tom out for just a minute? Leslie, are you helping me count?
Trying to. It is definitely difficult. Okay.
Yeah, it is.
I think I only have 6. If we don't count Rich on the Weaver one.
Yeah.
Is that right? 1, 2, 3.
7. We have 7.
Without Rich.
Yes.
That's what I thought.
If he abstains, isn't he here technically voting an abstention? How does that work?
I believe we may have 8.
8, including Commissioner Morrow.
Hey, Mary, it's based upon what our bylaws say.
We have a total of 9 commissioners.
On right now, even though
Yeah.
Tom Ross is off. Okay, yeah. Okay, well, if you are saying.
Yeah, we have 8 plus Rich Morrow.
8 plus Rich, okay. So Commissioner Morrow is abstaining, and we had then already 8 ayes, right?
where does that leave us in our?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask Greg. So how much money have we trimmed?
So, so far I have removed the computers for contractors outside of Weaver and Utah, and then the training funds as described in the last motion. And that has trimmed $25,235 from that.
I thought I understood that Wally was suggesting that the basin program we not fund. Was I wrong there, Wally? So that's 75,000, isn't it?
The request for Vernal's, or excuse me, Uinta County's CLE was only a total of 20,000.
Well, it was.
I should have said earlier to Greg's recommendation on the Vegas training that we all voted to approve for 2. They're asking for 4 nights of hotel room, and the first day of that training is 3 p.m. So if you flew in the day of the training, start at 3 p.m., sleep, go Friday, sleep, go Saturday, they're done by 5 in Vegas. A flight home from Vegas is easy. It seems to me like it ought to be 2 nights of hotel at the IDC's dime.
Yeah, that sounds good. Do you want to make that motion, Michael? Might be
If I
easier.
could just, substitute what was previously approved for 2 attorneys, but make it a 2 night for each of those 2 attorneys
Very
for
good.
hotels.
You did bring that up before, and Greg talked about the schedule. Thank you for that. Is there a
Yeah.
second?
Yeah, I'd second that.
And that was Commissioner Bugden.
Right.
Very good. All right, all in favor of that motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. Okay, unanimous. Okay, so wow, we're still have only cut down.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
The bulk of the requests are really coming out of Utah County and Weaver County. Maybe it would make sense to just jump to those. I think some of the motions that were just made really address some of the other slides, but maybe if we switch to Utah County and Weaver County, that might be the best use of the remaining time.
Okay, and Wally?
Before we go there, could you put up the Beaver slide again? Or I'm sorry, Box Elder. And was it Box Elder that you explained, Greg, that the procedure is such that the public defender has to make a request for the approval of resource funding to the judge, and that the prosecutor can weigh in and object? Well, I mean, this is a small amount of money, and I don't have any problem, and I agree with Box Elder's request for this funding. But can we put some sort of a string attached in the future to giving Box Elder County money, saying, hey, the county attorney cannot weigh in on defense requests, and unless you remove that from the contract?
That's an excellent point, Commissioner Bugden, and I would just not disclose, I'll update the commissioners that Box Elder County is in active negotiations with regionalization with Cache County. And I think that would be an excellent opportunity, if and when that comes to pass, to renegotiate the contracts to get rid of that procedure, because obviously that is hugely problematic.
Well, so then before we turn to the counties where the bulk of the money is at issue, and where we can trim a lot of money, does it make sense, Matt, that we make a motion at this time?
Yeah, I think so.
So I guess I would make the motion then that if we have an opportunity to negotiate a new contract with Box Elder and whoever they're going to, and is it Weaver? Would they?
Cache County is
with Cache County, that we have some language in the contract that removes the ability of the county attorney's office to object to resource funding or defense resources.
I'll second that.
Okay, so motion by Commissioner Bugden, second by Commissioner Zimmerman. Any further discussion or question on that? All right, everyone who, these are my words, everyone who agrees, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there anyone
Aye.
opposed? Anyone opposed? Okay, great. Thank you for that. So now we're going to go to those big requests, right? Utah, okay. Where do we want to start with this?
So we addressed the CLE. I would like to chime in, if I may, about the backlog attorneys. I think that this is something that commissioners would, I'd like your input on. That 4 temporary backlog attorneys for 6 months, that is, as Greg mentioned, relates to the death penalty case where they dedicated 4 attorneys to work on that full time, which we were fully supportive of. However, death has been taken off the table in that case. We did reach out to Utah County to address whether they intended to keep those 4 attorneys working full time. The case is set for trial in the summer, I believe. And they indicated that they did still want to maintain the 4 attorneys working full time on that case, even though the state is no longer seeking the death penalty. So I did want the commission to chime in as to that, whether we wanted to still fund those attorneys working, all 4 of those attorneys working full time for the next 6 months on that case.
Yeah, great question. Love to hear from you all. Rich Morrow, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Hey, Matt, was that request specific to the death penalty work, or was it a broader argument about backlog? And the reason I asked that question is, do you know if Utah County has made any application for ARPA money to fill in for some of the backlog cases that they may have? Because I know that's it's obviously a federal funding source. I know Utah County has availability of some of that money, and I'm wondering if you have any knowledge about whether that office made any requests for that type of money.
I don't know if that relates to this particular request for the backlogs. In answer to your question, though, yes, this backlog does specifically relate to that former death penalty case. I think if we go to the next slide, though, Greg, if you would, there we go. The budget shortfalls, we did ask them, because there was some question whether there was going to be some federal funds that would be able to handle this budget shortfall. And Greg, can you remind me what their response was?
Yeah, I believe there was, they had received some tax credits that they that had contributed to their reserve. I can't remember if it was directly tied to ARPA or what, but it was COVID related tax credits that they had received.
Yeah, you know, Rich, that's a really good question. And I brought that up before too, but a little tricky, just trying to understand where county executives were informed enough and chose to spend their relief money, because this is certainly, you know, budget shortfalls is all that relief money, and there was so much of it, so very much of it, to try to respond and help counties. So I don't know if we know any more about them.
Yes, Judge, I have that motion.
Maybe it's hard to know about the county's budgets at that level.
Like to respond to that motion for a hearing?
I guess it just depends on what the basis is. If it's
I don't know where that is.
no, what
I want to try to mute somebody. There we go. Thank you. Okay, so did we answer the questions so far? And does anyone else have input? Just trying to look at it all. I'm amazed at the cost of law books, but I guess I shouldn't be. I guess if we can try to prioritize within Utah's request, within these two very large county requests, what might be more important, prioritizing some things over the other. Is that a good way, commissioners, to try to go? Because obviously, those are some really big chunks that just two counties are requesting. And they are counties that have bigger budgets for sure.
Madam Chair, can I use this opportunity to ask about a goal? Are we looking to spend the total amount, or
oh yeah,
with the idea that, like a lot of government entities, and I say that with some admitted cynicism, that we've got to spend it all this year or else we won't get the same amount next year? Or is it to hold some off for mid-year, if ands or buts, or just helping to identify what the goal or objective of the group would be will help me at least think about how we proceed going through the rest of these.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. And then Ryan, I'll get to you next. For those who had meetings leading into this time frame, we are trying to get to 500,000 or below, but there doesn't seem to be any wise reason to go lots lower. So the IDC has already built in nearly a couple 100,000 to handle the things that come up that we don't know about yet. Does that make sense of this non-lapsing? Am I saying this correctly, Greg?
That's
Yes.
great. And one thing to note on this also with Utah County, this is in the order of their priority. So computers would be their highest, and then the budget shortfalls would be the lowest.
Oh,
we're asked to put it in the order of their priority level.
That's super helpful. Thank you for that. Ryan, what's your question or comment?
That was actually in my question is did they prioritize their request in any way? So Greg answered it as always.
I can't say that for sure on all requests, but this specific request, we asked them to do that. Since
that's
do they
good.
know if Weber did?
I don't. I don't believe that they did.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Rich, did you have another question?
Yes, I did. Thanks, Madam Chair. I'm wondering about the temporary lawyers. I think it's going to be difficult for them to fill 4 lawyer slots for a period of 6 months. And I'm wondering really what the need is there. I mean, if they really need that, and what the discussion would be with the potential employees that they would be wanting to hire. And really, I mean, if you're thinking about bringing somebody on for 6 months, that's about the time that it takes to really effectively do some training so you can prepare them to really do the work that you need to do. And I'm wondering if they have plans or thoughts about keeping those people on, or what that discussion would be, or how they would be planning on addressing a temporary group of employees that would only be with them for 6 months. And I don't know if anybody knows the answer to that question.
It's a good question. Anyone? Greg?
The reason that was given to us for these attorneys was to address workload that was additional workload due to the capital case. And so that's what I would fall back on, is to say that.
And if I could
Go
add
ahead,
to
Dan.
that as well, the way that they have handled that up until now is that they have contracted with attorneys outside the office. So it's on a contract basis. So I don't believe that there's any expectation on those attorneys' parts that they would become full-time employees after this is over. It's kind of a short-term program based on that case.
Okay. That's helpful. Commissioner Zimmerman, I think you have a question or comment.
I just wondered about the 4 lawyers on the case now that death is out of it. Are they just staying on because we paid for it and they want us to continue to pay for it, even though death is off the table? I mean, Rich or any of the active defense counsel on the call could probably comment on the necessity for the extra counsel now that death is gone. But I guess we don't, perhaps on the other hand, we don't want to interfere with people's decisions. I just throw that out.
Well, and here's a concern that I have as a death qualified attorney in the state of Utah who's appointed on death cases. One of the issues is that in a death case, a defendant receives the assistance of 2 counsel by statute, by rule, and often the case is investigated and worked up and prepared by 2 attorneys, each of whom develops relationships with witnesses and family members and gains the trust of a client and works on different aspects of a case, shares the burden. And if death is taken off the table later in the case, it often cripples the defense team to have one of them suddenly removed before action is to be taken in a trial or other important proceeding. And it may take more time and money to catch up that one attorney on what was done previously by the other attorney than to leave 2 attorneys on the case. And that's a problem that keeps arising in aggravated murder cases as counsel are appointed. And then at some point down the road, one of them is putatively removed. I think it creates ethical problems for an attorney who's no longer on the case, but who has the preparation done for certain work on the case. So there are issues surrounding that whole set of circumstances.
Thank you.
And did you say that the IDC funding has already been paying for those 4? So this is just keeping the continuity. Is that, am I seeing you nodding, Greg?
Yeah, so we funded this last year for 6 months for the same time period, so January through June. The county then continued funding for that through the end of the calendar year, and so that's what they're hoping to replicate.
I see. Okay.
The request also stated that the capital case is expected to go to trial in the summer of 2022.
Okay. All right.
Before we decide on Utah County's request and where we may want to trim their budgeted requests, do we see Weaver? Could we look at that?
Yes.
And we already took off that last one for Weaver for 2,000.
That's correct.
Mhm.
Well, I wonder what people think about Weaver, where they're asking for real nuts and bolts equipment funding versus Utah County asking for the continuation of 4 attorneys for 6 months.
And if I could just clarify something too, and maybe I just heard it wrong, but when Greg was describing the build out of this office, and with the Weber County losing some attorneys to a neighboring county, but then with some of the contractors who were left wanting to come use this space, I believe that would be as full-time public defenders. And so they would be using this full-time, not just as a a place to have their own practice in addition to public defense. Also, want to emphasize too, just the importance of Weber County taking over and regionalizing with Morgan, for if anybody missed that at the beginning of the presentation. So with Jim Rotelic being hired as the public defender there, he's got a lot of energy. He with the Morgan County regionalization, I mean, he took that on and really ran with it. With we sent him an MOU and he just went with it, and that was signed today. And so I think Weber County has a lot going for it right now.
That's helpful. Rich Morrow.
No, thank you, Madam Chair. So I would echo a lot of what Matt is saying. I mean, I went through the process of conducting interviews in Weber County as on their board of directors to oversee what's happening there. I think the struggle that they've had, and I think the basis for this budget request is there was virtually no, by the prior director, there was virtually no money funded for any of this. And there was really no notice given to the county commission about what startup costs for an office would be. I think that there was a placeholder number of about $12,000 that was put into place. When Jim took over and started working at the office, I think that he recognized there were a number of challenges and that it would be virtually impossible to do a startup office for $12,000. So I think that the place that they turned to was the IDC to look at funding. These are startup costs for full-time defenders. And I think there's a real commitment in Weber County that I'm happy to say for full-time public defenders and to make that office a full-time defender office. And again, I will be abstaining from any vote on this, but I do think they've thought about this, and I think that these are important. These are important startup costs for them. And if I were voting, I would be in favor of voting for this because I think it is important for them to have all of this overhead taken care of so that they can hit the ground running and really utilize full-time defenders. And I think that's really a very good thing for Weaver County.
Thank you. And I just want to help us all remember that the Zoom license for 240, I think we had some discussion already about WebEx being preferred, right? And that when they do want to use Zoom, there's a lot of free options. Commissioner Zimmerman?
Yeah, I just have a question of Rich. So what will be, do you think, the institutional change in Weber County that's worked by this project from a qualitative standpoint?
Well, I think the institutional change will be full-time defenders. Right now they have a contract system, and they've had a contract system up there for 30 years or more than that, for a very long time. They've had a contract system. I think Jim has a real commitment to making it a high quality office. I think that there's a level of enthusiasm for full-time lawyers. He's hired a number of people. I know he has an assistant, and they're really formulating plans to go from being a contractor service to a full-time defender agency. They'll be employees of the county. And I will say this, the county commission up there is supportive of the work that they're doing. And they want to try to do the right thing. I mean, funding will always be a challenge for them, but I think, there's another commissioner that serves on the board with myself and Brian Barron, who you all know. And I think that there's a real commitment to ensuring that they provide high quality defense representation in a full-time way. And I think that's a real benefit to Weber County. And I'm glad to hear Matt's update about Morgan County and then bringing them into the mix. But I do think institutionally we'll see good changes because we'll see a full-time commitment to the work that they're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, that definitely seems very mission oriented, doesn't it?
Yeah.
A mission of the IDC.
Well, if we gave Weber County all of the money that they're requesting for these startup costs, and then did not give Utah County the $142,000 that they're asking for 4 attorneys for the next 6 months, where would that leave us, Greg, in terms of trimming $200,000 or trying to get to back down to 500,000?
That would bring that would mean that we have trimmed $168,914. So very close.
Okay. So
Do we need a formal motion on the $240 for the Weber County Zoom license? If so, I move to strike that expense.
great.
Second.
And a second from, I recognize your voice, Ryan. All right, and all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, unanimous. So really, then it's a matter of math, right? Now we go back with all of that in place and go back and look specifically at Utah County and see what we can. And if they prioritized, which is wonderful that they did, then maybe kind of tell us how far down we can go, Greg? Or of course, anyone can bring up something that they question or don't know if it's as mission oriented, et cetera.
So, and there was not a formal motion to decline the backlog attorneys, is that correct? For the 140,000?
I didn't make a formal motion, but I
Yeah.
was just asking to see where we would end up.
Yeah, that's correct. So maybe with the motion now, just knowing that little bit of math, the motion can include what's included and leave out what's not included specific to Utah's request. Would that be a good way?
Yes.
I don't know. I'm not sure I have an opinion yet on which is more deserving of a cut of the hatchet, the $123,000 for the 2021 shortfall, or the $142,000 for 4 attorneys to continue for 6 months. I guess I'm not sure from a systems perspective which we would prefer to put our money behind.
That's a great question.
So with the formal motions that have occurred so far, we've cut $26,191. We have another $173,488 to cut.
Well, what do people think? I'd like to hear what other people think about trimming 123,000 for the 2021 shortfall versus the 142,000 for 4 lawyers.
Can I throw a suggestion out there as well? You know, with the 4 lawyers, that doesn't necessarily have to be an all or nothing thing. You know, if they want to retain 2 lawyers working on that case full time, I think that would be something that the commission could consider as well.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question, Commissioner Bugden. Does anyone else who works and has lots of experience have an opinion between those choices, those categories?
Well, are the 4 lawyers, are these the 4 lawyers that were working on the death penalty case? Or are these 4 lawyers in the felony division to replace the 4 lawyers that were removed to work exclusively on the death penalty.
So are they exact same people, right? You're wondering if they're the exact same people?
My understanding is that they would take 2 lawyers off. Well, I mean, the fund is for contract attorneys to do the work that those 4 lawyers would otherwise be doing at the Utah County Public Defender's Office.
So to Mary's point earlier, they may not be the exact same people who've been working all along with their clients, right? And disrupting continuity. I mean, I really appreciated what Mary said, and it reminded me how important that is. But maybe that's already been disrupted as far as the exact people on the case.
So I'm sorry, Greg, I'm just asking one more time for clarification. They still intend to keep the 4 lawyers working on the death penalty or the non-death penalty case. The 4 lawyers we're talking about are the 4 lawyers that are taking the place and picking up the slack left by the other 4 lawyers being dedicated solely to the death penalty case, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Okay, Commissioner Zimmerman.
Well, it seems to me, based on what Rich was saying and our general preference for defender offices, that putting the money into Weber County is, in my mind, a higher priority than putting that same money into Utah County. I don't know if that's a fair, in terms of our total state agenda. It seems to me that's building infrastructure in a new place where it has not been as good. But that's just my impression. I'd be interested in comments from Rich and Wally and Mary.
And before they comment, what you just said, help me also just put something together, because they've prioritized for us and because we prioritize the public defense. To me, the moving whatever we can to the backlog is more important, probably in my mind, than calendar year budget shortfalls, particularly when a very large county has received a lot of relief funds.
Yeah, it's the second biggest county, and that's
so much money. I mean, I can only tell you guys, it's mind-blowing money that has gone to relief.
Just to clarify also with the previous motion regarding computers for contract systems, I don't currently have a decision for the other types of equipment requests that they've made. I don't know if that was the intent of that motion or not, to decline other things like desks and chairs and printers and all of those other items. Was that the intent of that previous motion, or is that still undecided?
I hadn't included that. I wasn't thinking about including that at the time.
I'm going to stop this share and switch to a spreadsheet that I have with each of the request items. I think that might be a little more useful visually. Let me know if you cannot read that. I can try to zoom in further.
Looks good.
So this is a list of all the requests, individual line items for each county. This far right column is items that are declined, and column F is items that are approved so far.
And so your question, Greg, was specific to what?
So specific to those counties, such as Tooele, Beaver, Juab, Millard, those with the non-centralized office. We had a motion that was to decline computers for those contractors, but did the commission want to extend that motion to declining other equipment? For example, with Tooele, you have a number of different equipment items that have been requested.
Yeah, that's a great clarification. Thank you for that.
Now, are those for contract lawyers in Tooele?
Yes, all of the attorneys there are on contract.
So this would be in private offices?
Correct.
So if we want to be consistent, we should have a motion for this as well, right? Which I like consistency.
So I would add to the motion that I previously made with respect to excluding or not giving the contract non-centralized lawyers new computers, but also the corollary or corresponding physical equipment like computer desks.
Would a new motion just take care of that, or do we need to amend the prior? Someone, maybe Ryan knows.
If you amend, the same person has to amend the motion that made it in the same second. New motion, Michael did that earlier, where he refined a previous motion with a new motion. I think either could be appropriate.
What about, why don't I just make a motion separately from Wally's directed to office equipment, including computers for contract lawyers across all the requests.
Very good. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Yeah, I would second that.
Okay, Wally's got the second. Any further discussion on that? All right. All who want to vote in favor of that motion, please say aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? Okay, unanimous again. So yeah, look at this amazing spreadsheet work. Good job. We'll see where we're at.
So with that, that's 43,517 that has been removed. We have another 156,000 to go to reach the target of 500,000.
It's pick and shovel work.
We've had a fair amount of discussion though because we're really down to just the Utah County, right? Am I understanding that correctly? Kind of deciding what to fund and what not to fund in Utah County. Would that be a good assessment? Looks like Greg's nodding. Okay.
Yes.
And once again, when we had both pages of, well, I have theirs up on my second screen. We had some, we know they have prioritized helping us with that. And then I made the comment about perhaps helping the defenders with backlog is more aligned with our mission anyway, not to mention they prioritized and put all the rest of the budget shortfall at the end.
Well, based on the counsel of a county commissioner, I'd make a motion, we opt for the 4 lawyers.
Thank you for that. And so maybe that's a motion. Ryan, did you have a comment?
Oh, I'm fine with that motion and I would second it, but also my question or comment was of staff. And we know that this is their prioritized list, and as staff has gone through and looked at our core principles and how it aligns, what would staff suggest we remove and go through as they're more familiar with it.
Hmm.
But back to Mr. Commissioner Zimmerman's motion, I would second it.
Okay, very good. So yeah, with the further discussion, staff, what would you like to say?
I think we're supportive of that motion of the budget shortfall being lower on the priority list.
For staff as well, for IDC principals. All right, well, let's see. Okay, so there's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed?
No opposition, but Margaret abstains.
Oh, welcome, Margaret. Wonderful.
Oh, Margaret.
Yay, you abstained just in time. Good job.
Sorry.
So Greg, what's
I was ended
the,
up on my wrong calendar day.
Oh, no, that's okay.
what's the running total now with the 123,000 added?
So that reducing it by the budget shortfall takes us down to we've cut 166,000, so we'd still need to cut $32,980.50 to get to the target.
All right, and maybe I'll,
$32,980.
and with your discussions, staff, oh, Michael, did you have a question? Michael Zimmerman?
No, sorry.
You just stretched. You just stretched at the wrong time there.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay, yeah, so staff, anything else? You are the very most familiar with the amounts and all of the requests.
I would note one of the, I don't want to get too persnickety, if that's the right word, but with the technology request, one thing that they requested was iPhones, and I don't believe that that's anything that we've ever funded for systems, is to have a designated work phone for the attorneys there. So that's something that came up in our staff discussions.
Yeah, that's helpful.
So I'll make a motion if you need that, or do you have a list, Matt, that you want to?
Well, and just speaking larger, I mean, this is part of why we posed the question at the beginning of whether the commission wanted to differentiate between startup costs and established offices. Utah County was in a other building. They were moved to a different building, and so I think that's where some of these requests for switches and such comes from, was related to their move that the county made them do. On the one hand, we were thinking, well, if the county made them make this move, then maybe the county should pay for these upgrades, but then we certainly don't want them to be left high and dry just for something that was not their decision. So that was something, honestly, that we struggled with a bit with our conversations. I think that Weaver County was an easier thing to support, but then Utah County, that is what we went back and forth on.
And Margaret, you have already said you will abstain. And so, and Rich did this with his involvement, helping Weaver County's new dedicated office get up and going. So he abstained, but he also was able to say, add some information that was helpful for decision-making. If you have anything that you want to add, you're sure welcome to. We just have to still cut that much more.
Sure. Part of Matt's point was, we're in a county in an area of rapid growth, and that has resulted in rapid growth of our office. And so part of the startup costs, I know too, are not only was the move to a new building, but then there was, within the last 6-7 months, an addition of additional space in that new building. So we didn't have offices for all of the attorneys, and so that required, including, we didn't have prior to that time any office space for juvenile attorneys, and so adding that additional space has resulted in additional costs. You know, I think that obviously the office is appreciative of any help. As you know, especially as we look to continue to try to you know, work towards building more efficient and more regionalized systems. But I know that's you know, probably a good part of that. Some of those startup costs is associated with just the move and the additional space. But I think everyone understands the need to what this commission does and the need to operate within, you know, the funds where they're most needed, and so yeah.
My question for you, in addition to what you just shared, is your county commissioners, are they pretty aware? Are they, you know, able to budget what they can?
You know, I think increasingly so. I mean, we've had you know, a great turnover.
Yeah, you have.
In our commission especially in the last year. But my understanding from talking with Ben Young, our business manager, and with Josh Esplin and Tom Means, who are usually the ones that spearhead most of the relationships and the dealings with the commission, is that they feel like the commission is fairly receptive and is working to you know, increase and making us a priority, you know, as well as in trying to address the needs of a large, you know, increasing county. I think that our increase in this year's budget, I think, was greater than was allocated to most county departments. So I do know that they seem to be receptive and working with us.
That's helpful to know. Adam, did you have something?
I do. My concern about this, and really about Weber and about a number of the other requests that are in some of these other counties we haven't gotten to, is I don't know how they serve our guiding principles. And I don't think we would even consider these kinds of requests as part of our original grant application process. I know we're trying to give additional money, but I don't see where these fit. And I really believe that if we're going to start down this road with this kind of money, which was given for the purpose of grant funding, then we're going to get ourselves into a situation where we're receiving those kinds of requests and giving that money over time. It's the same thing really with regard to the training funds, which we provide to counties free. And if we start giving money to selected places for selected training, we're going away from what we're doing everywhere else. So I think that this is not a giveaway process. This is a process for really deciding how we supplement what we're already doing for counties. I had to say that point because I think we're covering the same discussions about just giving money to people a number of different ways, some of which is really quality, but we got a lot of line by line items here that are hard to separate from each other. I'll just stop there. You all are decision makers. It's just, that's one of the things I'm seeing as we go through.
Thank you. Commissioner Morrow had to drop off for another meeting.
My only, comment on maybe some of the training is that I think there's a certain classification of training. For example, when you do have a death penalty case or some specific skills training that maybe we're not yet in a position to provide, that we may want to keep open to those particular items. But I think what Adam says has great merit.
Yeah, and we did have some of that, Margaret, with the DNA specific, whatever that high level national training is, that we really don't have someone probably in the state who can train on that yet. Ryan, I see you, your hand is up.
Yeah, Adam's comments were kind of where I was going before, and I know I made the comment, I meant to make it outside of the motion, but it was kind of made with that motion. But what I'd like to understand from staff is where you see the priorities. They've got their priorities. Which priorities here line up best with our core principles? And those would be the ones I'd be inclined most to fund, to try to preserve as much of the core principle prioritization as possible.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And along with that, I'm just reminding myself that we don't have to spend all of 5,000 if we decide to, that some 500,000, then we don't, we don't have to concede some of our core principles just to spend that, right? Am I kind of interpreting, Ryan, what you're saying as well?
Yeah, I don't know the rules on whether or not we have to spend it. I defer to staff on that, but just from the standpoint, I want to start by spending those things that fulfill our core principles first. Then if we have extra and we need to help people out, training, some of those things are great, but let's get the core principles first.
So I will just say it's hard for me where there are so many lines, right? To be able to, if you have a way, Greg, of helping us just kind of see where the core principles are, making sure we add those in.
Well, I think to those comments, directly funding attorneys, directly funding defense resources. I mean, those are things that are squarely within the IDC's mission. Technology or physical items, I think, are lower down on our priority list. Again, I think that with Weber County being a startup office and working to create a public defense office, I think that that's something that is exceptional, that justifies some support by the IDC. And so I would just add that to the conversation here as far as the staff is concerned.
Thank you. So I don't know if any other commissioners have a suggestion or an idea for Greg, but I was just thinking maybe if it's quick enough, he can highlight and we can add the ones that are core. Even that is a difficult judgment call.
I'm going to need to drop off and appear by phone because I'm running out of juice here for some reason.
Thank you. Okay, thanks, Mary.
Uh-huh.
We'll watch for your phone.
Okay, so we want to just add in anything that is funding an additional attorney or defense resources. Is that essentially what we want to look at here?
I believe so. Commissioners, am I right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. And then Leslie can perhaps just make sure we still have 8 while you're doing that.
I count exactly 8, but we know I was off last time, so.
Okay.
Well, totally accept other counts.
I think Commissioner Corporon dropped off, but hopefully we'll be back soon and bring us back up to 9 in case anybody needs to abstain.
Okay. That's true. Hang on, I need somebody to get me some more water. Look it down. While he's working on that, just I could say this at the end, but I'll say it now. This is just a lot of very thoughtful work from commissioners and staff, and thank you. I as chair, I mean, I sense the significance of these meetings where we make decisions on funding. So thank you.
Thank you for your patience.
I think essentially that would be those types of requests. I don't know if we want to go through this to see if there's anyone or anything that I've left off. So I have not added the DocuSign. I have not added the equipment fees. I did add the admin assistant in Tooele. Did not add CLE items in Uinta County. There's the request for data clerk and prepaid phone. I'm not sure if that would apply for an evaluation type. Utah County, so I did not add equipment. Did add the backlog attorneys. Did not add the clothing. I don't know if that would count as a defense resource item. Did not add the law books or the business process training. And so that would put us at 412,242 approved funding if that's what we wish to fund further from there.
Thank you. So if I understand correctly, then all of the approvals so far come to that 412,242. Okay.
Yes, that's if we add in those items that we just added. So
Yeah.
support staff, defense resources, and attorneys.
Okay.
And there was a formal motion to decline the training, correct, for Uinta County?
Yes.
I think so.
So I need to add these items to what has been declined. So that might get us closer on that too. So formally declined so far, we've declined $190,568. So everything else remaining is 509,000.
Okay. Wow, thank you. So now we just need to do about just under 9,200, right?
Correct.
That's something that is aligned with.
And I would just, no, I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, go.
Madam Chair, but that 500,000 is not a hard and fast line too. I'll just remind the commission of that. It's a target. If we are a little bit above that, that's fine. If we're a little bit below that, that's fine as well.
Okay, that's right.
It's a soft target.
That's right. Okay. Well,
I'd move we approve the 509,110.50.
I second that.
And counted a good day's work.
Commissioner Zimmerman made a motion and then Bugden seconded.
Madam Chair, before you take a vote, could I just quickly go through the items that would add into this?
Yes, please. That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, so that would be the DocuSign subscriptions. it would be the computer equipment for Utah County. The phones, if we want to include the phones, the office furniture, the network switches.
Those aren't the iPhones, are they?
They were. So if we want to exclude those, we might want to include that as part of the motion. That would include the clothing for Utah County, the law books, the business process training.
These would be kept and not cut?
These would be kept, yes. And so if the iPhones were excluded, that would put us at 507, 717, 50. So there could be a motion if we want to exclude any of those specific items that I just went through. That would probably need to be included in the motion.
So Greg, maybe I missed something, but when you talked about the things that were core and then pointed down to that 509, I thought everything was core.
That was 413 was the core, and then these others are add-ons.
Yeah, so the things I just ran through were more like equipment type items, things that were not necessarily defense resources, attorneys, or support staff.
Okay.
Oh, boy.
Adam, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. So I don't recall that we went back and actually looked at what the requests for were from the counties carefully. I think we went to the idea of cutting some areas. Would you like to do that? I just went back and flipped through them, and it looks like a lot of the requests fit within what we've just identified as serving our core principles. May not take too long once you get there, but I think it'd be helpful to look at what the actual requests are again. I'll leave that to you.
I'm good with that. Other commissioners, are you good to just take that one last look?
Sure.
Okay.
How many of us are there now? Still 8?
I'm guessing so. Seems like I haven't seen anyone else say they had to drop off and stay off. So yeah, I'll say that we're probably still good.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to leave soon too.
Okay.
We've got 8, and then I think this is Mary Brown is on the phone, which would make it 9.
Okay. Yeah, see if we can do that really fast. Adam, what you just said.
Do you want me how do you want me to run back through that then? Do we want
How about if we just go and pull that first, the PowerPoint up, and just go through slides quickly and see what's there. For example, Joab County has, I think, 1 item left, and we can go through those quickly.
So this spreadsheet has all the requests. It might be easier to stay on here just because it's all here.
Yep, that makes sense. Greg, thanks.
I wonder if we couldn't just have Greg go back over the ones that don't fit our core goals, and we can make a decision as to those. It sounded like there weren't that many. Is that right, Greg?
So when I went back through and added things back in, I had already removed everything that there was a formal motion to remove.
Okay.
That included the training, since the IDC provides training. It included equipment for offices that are not centralized, and other things specifically declined.
Okay.
So I can go through each county and we could there could be a motion based on the spreadsheet. If we went through the county line by line very quickly, I could tell you what is in the approved column versus the declined column. And if there's something that we want to shift one way or the other, we could do that.
Yeah, I think that'll go pretty fast. Go ahead.
Okay. So Joab County Defense Resources is under approved. computer equipment is under declined. Millard County, the Spanish-speaking attorney is under approved. Hourly backlog attorney under approved. Defense resources approved. Computer equipment declined. Law clerks and interns approved. San Pete County Defense Resources approved. Beaver County computer declined. DocuSign approved. Kane County computer declined. DocuSign approved. Box Elder County hourly investigator approved. Tooele County equipment declined. Admin assistance approved. Uinta County, we have the CLE related items are declined, and the data clerk position I have currently in declined. I don't know if that should be moved to approve or not, along with the associated prepaid phone.
It should either be both approved or both declined, because the phone was for the data collective clerk.
And so that was for the survey. They were going to do a survey of former clients in Uinta County, just to remind the commission of what that was.
And this might be a helpful survey. It could be a start toward like a pilot project or something for evaluating attorney performance. So it could be a.
I'll move we leave it in, and the phone.
Okay, included with your motion, okay.
Utah County, we have the computer upgrades are approved, the phones are declined, the office furniture approved, network switches approved, network switches, firewall, and cabling upgrade is approved. The CLE we have approved for 2 attorneys to attend the CLE. The rest is declined. We have to approve the backlog attorneys, the clothing closet and organization, the law books, business process training, and then
What
we
were
have
people's feelings about from law books to business process? I thought I heard some negative comment on that. Wally, did you say something about that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. I'd say go ahead then.
Then the budget shortfalls are in the declined category, as they were specifically addressed. So then for Weber County, the additional specialty contract hourly funding is approved. The startup costs are approved aside from the Zoom license, and the Defender data training is currently in the declined category.
So that leaves us at 512, 147.
Yes.
This is very nitpicky, but have you used the Black's Law Dictionary lately, Michael?
I was going to suggest that might be available online. I don't know.
I mean,
nobody uses Black's Law
is-
after the first year of law school.
well, I would suggest that we not pay for a Black's Law Dictionary.
Yeah, I'm with Wally. I'll second that.
Probably for the boss who types with 2 fingers still.
Yeah, why would you need any of those 3 actually?
I would also recommend on the business process training. I think that, that is something that they've got a very good administration there that is probably developing policies and procedures. I think that is something that might be able to be done in-house. I remember when I was at LDA, we had a big project and brought in a lot of the supervisors there to work on that. And so there was a lot of buy-in doing it that way when staff was involved in coming up with what those policies and procedures were.
Adam, I think I heard you comment that you weren't so sure about the trial book for Utah lawyers. I don't know if I have a strong feeling, but the evidence book by Benson and Magnum is very helpful. And I think that Utah County should have those books. I use them all the time.
What about, do you think, are you saying, Matt, the business processing you think is a good idea, or they should do it in-house?
I was suggesting, if you were looking for items lower on priority list, that might be one to cut.
Okay, so I'll move that we move it over to the cut line.
So you'll add that to your motion. Good. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, look at that.
Then my motion is that we approve 502, 062, 55.
and all of those items. That was a really great run through and final look, Greg. Thank you for that. I think that was worth doing.
welcome.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we still have a second then? Was that you, Commissioner Buckton?
Sure, I'll second that.
Okay. Any additional question or anything from a commissioner on this motion? Okay, wow. I'll go ahead and call. Let's see, Ryan Luce did have to drop off too. Looks like, do we have 8?
Oh, please. Oh, please.
So I can hurry.
This is Mary. I am here for what it's worth.
Yeah, you are. It's worth a lot, as it turns out.
Thank you, Mary.
So
It's worth $500,000.
yes. I'm going to look at the participants with staff really quickly, and then we'll just need to get someone back if we need to. 1.
I'm counting 8.
Well,
We have 8. The only issue might be Margaret.
Margaret's
needs to
abstention.
abstain from Utah County.
yeah. So let's see. Let's get someone.
Is there a problem with just agreeing to the whole amount without any?
Yeah,
having
it's
to put
just
it on any line item?
a gross
Utah
figure.
County?
Oh, yeah, that's a question. Maybe in the motion, did you mean, Michael, that you agree to all of the, or you move all of
I'm
the
just
items
moving that we have 502,062.55 allocated as indicated.
with all of the components of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, let me see if I can get somebody on just to vote.
I wonder if Tom is available just to cast a vote.
Okay, I'm just gonna see who will answer fastest. Oh, there's Ryan. All right, we are ready. Ryan,
The little bird told me I should get back on.
what did we do before text and virtual? Okay, we are ready. There's been a motion, there's been a second, there's been lots of discussion, but we landed, you can see that, Ryan, at the 502, which is everything that you heard discussion about.
Okay.
Go ahead. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? Please say nay. All right. See you, Ryan.
You need the quorum to vote to close?
Yep, we needed the quorum to, yeah, do that last vote. That was the very last vote, Ryan.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Well,
So-
there's an agenda, but just let me just see if there's anything. We don't need a quorum for anything else, right, Matt? That was it. Oh, you're muted, hun.
Right, we just needed that extra vote because Commissioner Lindsay had to abstain on the Utah County. So we still have a quorum as
All right.
constituted.
See you guys.
Yes, thanks,
Yeah.
Ryan. So yes, and Matt, I don't, even though I'm gonna close the meeting, if people need to drop off, they can now, right?
Yeah, that was the last thing we needed the last thing, that was all we needed to vote on.
And honestly, everyone, the only other things here is just there's Public Defense Day on the Hill, February 23rd, and we're looking forward to that. That's going to be terrific. I think Senator Weiler will be a guest speaker from our commission for that. And then open meetings training we did. Other business, honestly, no. And the next commission meeting is March 17th at 2 p.m. And just think that legislative session will be behind us at that point. Wow.
You promise?
Yeah,
Really mean it?
hang in there. The first one's a doozy. And I guess I do need a motion to adjourn, but thanks.
I'll
to
move
all
to
you.
adjourn.
Thank you, Michael Zimmerman.
Thank you, everybody. Wonderful discussion as always. I really appreciate everybody's time and attention.
And thanks staff for that amazing amount of work. It was giant.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you. Can we stop the recording? Is that